All right, welcome back. And just in case you're tuning in right now, this is your world. And of course, let me just, shift our focus on the conversation of the day. And this is as far as the upcoming Second International Conference on Peace, Security and Social Enterprise as well, which will be happening from the 18th to 20th of May. And this is actually just a day after tomorrow. All right. So, of course, the question is why now? And the fact that we're just a few months shy away from the general election, why is it very important for us to just focus on peace, talk about peace, and of course the economy as well? So of course, let me introduce my guest of the day very quickly. So on my immediate left, I'm joined by Reverend Regina Kinuthia, who's a lecturer and clergy as well. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to see you. Thank you very much for making time for us this morning. We also have Dr. Vincent Gaido, who's the Chair, Peace Conference Organizing Committee. How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, welcome to the show, as well as Shiro Mogeni, who is an advocate. It's good to see you this morning. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Karibu sana, and of course you all look lovely and fresh this morning. So ladies and gentlemen, let's just start with the conference, just in case someone does not know what's going to happen on the 18th to 20th of May this year. Let's just first of all get to understand what the conference is all about.
Thank you very much. Mount Kenya University with other partners have come together to do a conference on peace, security and social enterprise. We call it the Second International Conference on Peace, Security and Social Enterprise because we are doing a repeat of this 5 years after the first one in the same month in 2017, just before the general election of that year. This year we have decided to do a repeat or a second conference as we prepare ourselves as a country towards the general election. We noticed that the outcome of the 2007-2008 post-election violence taught us as Kenyans a lot that we can go into an event and a process of determining leadership of our country and end up hurting ourselves, hurting our institutions, hurting our businesses, and so on and so forth. So in 2017, we thought, why don't we do a peace conference so that as we go into the election, people will have thought of the best way that they can go through an election and continue with life without disruption. We thought the lessons of 2007 and 8 had taught us something. But after the 2017, we still realized we are still not there. We are still quite intolerant on each other. A lot of disruption, which ended up being put to a hold, and I would say maybe to a hold by the handshake. We do not know. And as we look at things now, and as we listen to the leaders, as they seek political leadership, there's still a level of intolerance. And that is why we're saying we need to come back again and ask ourselves how, as universities, as private sector, as public sector, how can we engage in peace building? This is important.
All right, and I'm happy that we have representation from different areas. We have the clergy, and of course we have an advocate as well. And the question is mentioning about the intolerance. The biggest question is then where does this stem from? Because when you listen to the leaders speak, they'll tell you, yeah, we encourage everyone to maintain peace. We want a peaceful nation. But at the same time, they're the same leaders who are standing on the podium. And, there's a lot of verbal, like the words that they speak really goes against what exactly they're preaching, and that is as far as peace is concerned. So the question is, where does this stem from? Where do you put a boundary as far as this is just politics? We're in the political season, campaigns and stuff, and we need to, make sure that we garner as much votes as we can, but also at the same time, make sure that we respect different people from different, parts of the country and conduct a peaceful election. So I'll come back to you for that. But you said this is the second international conference, right? So what lessons or what are some of the deliberations that happened during the first conference that is in 2017? Has that been implemented over the 5 years now that we're having the second, conference as well?
Thank you very much. I would say a lot was discussed, and a lot was resolved at the conference. And for example, we decided that going forward, we need to come up with a consortium for peace, whereby we bring stakeholders, so that at the end of the day, even in terms of training, we need to ask ourselves, how do we include in our curriculums issues of patriotism, issues of good governance? Because at the end of the day, we're saying, as institutions of learning, we are preparing leaders that the moment they exit the school environment, the inverted environment, they go and occupy position of leadership in private and public sector.
Okay.
And therefore, there can never be any other better way of inculcating this sense of belonging and ownership of the country than at the school level.
Okay.
And therefore, we hope and we believe that it is necessary for us to adjust our curriculum at the university level, at the school level, so that we do not just train people to become smart accountants, to become smart lawyers, but we also train them to become lawyers, accountants, and other professionals who have value beyond the profession they train in.
Okay.
And this is basically what we hope we shall achieve now and even beyond.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what about the primary school level? What about secondary school level? But like you said, it is universities together with, all these others, so that we try as much as possible and, inculcate these values from a very young age.
Sure.
Okay, because in different parts of the country, especially where there's a lot, chaos here and there, there's a bit, of unrest. Most of the time you'd find that even the young children, the adolescents are also involved. So how about we, instill these values as early as possible? But let me come back to you, Reverend Regina, in terms of also, the religious institutions. And let's discuss how important of a role the religious institutions, like, of course, being a clergy, play as much as far as promoting peace is concerned in the country. And now that we're heading into the general election, because there's a lot of talk about, the religious institutions are not doing much to tame, these politicians who are coming to the church and, of course, spew, words that are not really, really good that people would want to hear in church.
Thank you. I think as the church, we are out to remind the world that peace is not absence of war or differences or absence of commotions or conflicts, but differences will always be there. One politician will say one thing, the other one will answer in the other way. Peace is that ability to be able to resolve our differences peacefully. We want a society, we want a community where there is tolerance. You can tolerate me, I can tolerate you, and the nation can move on. And this is what the church is preaching even today. Really trying to remind people that what God would want for the world today is to have peace. When you go through scriptures, what Christ left to the world, to his disciples, to his followers, is peace. And not peace as the world would give, but that peace that surpasses every other understanding. And this is what we want to hear coming out from political rallies and from all the other quarters. Instead of people talking against one another, we would want people who have ears, who can hear, listen, understand, know that I'm different from you, you are different from me, and then accept this and be able to move on. However, it is important to know that there is no one person or one place or one thing that has power over us, because the only person thinking in you, it's you. And this leader should know that these conflicts do not come from outside, but they come from within us, because we think that there are some people elsewhere who owe us something which we want to get from them. And we would want to urge the nation at this time and at this moment that all what we need in all quarters is peace, that ability to be tolerant, to tolerate one another, and to take to the world that gospel. Yeah. Peace, peace, peace is what we want.
All right. And I can understand why it is important, especially the church, to, you know, continue preaching peace, because again, the religious institutions is where people go, you know, to find solace, is where people would go, you know, to connect to, you know, to the higher being. It is that place where everybody would want to go. But at the same time, sometimes there's a bit of a gray area where, fine, if I get to the pulpit, what do I say, you know, to the people? What do I preach? You'd find that some political leaders would actually speak against, you know, their opponents at the pulpit. So in terms of, yes, the church is very vital in promoting peace, but would you say it's time to step up, you know, as not church, like in terms of like just church, but, you know, the entire religious, you know, institutions in the country? Would you say that it's time, you know, for them to step up?
Yes, I would say that, because the church belongs to all of us. The church is not for one party. The church is not only for one political leader or one political, you know, group. It belongs to all of us. Yeah. And when we allow people to come and talk against the other in the church, then it defeats the logic of what we are preaching. Really, what becomes very tricky in terms of balancing is the fact that these are members of our church. So sometimes they are not just in the church because of the politics, but they are there because that is where they attend their worship. But I think we need to step out clearly that we don't want campaigns that will come and tarnish the name of the other person there, because again, that is not the right place to do so. You will find in the same church, there are members of this party who are very, you know, prominent in their parties, and they are still members of this other party who are still worshippers there. And that is why in the church we need to preach the gospel of Christ.
All right.
Of course, the church again cannot stay very far from politics, because as the retired, as he is already gone, David Gitari, Dr. David Gitari would say, we are all in the same boat.
Yes.
We are all in the same boat. We cannot like just sit still as we allow politicians to drill a hole in this boat, because when water starts coming, we are all going to drown. So we cannot stay very far without reminding everybody that we all have to maintain peace.
Absolutely, absolutely. But let's talk a little bit about the law, Shiro, where you'd find, and especially when it comes now, again, since the conference is all about peace, and of course just a few months away shy from the general elections, there's usually that debate that the law is very clear, that no one is above the law. Everybody is treated equally, you know, when it comes to the law. But still, we find some bit of, I don't know whether to say leniency, especially towards leaders, you know, and in this sense, political leaders, where you'd find there's a number of offenses that just you know, happen in the public. Everybody sees this. We can all see that this was wrong. Whatever this person was saying was wrong. Whatever, you know, cases of incitement and all those things, it is wrong. But still, they're not prosecuted, right? Would you say the law is fair in this sense?
That is a bit relative. Because, you know, the legitimacy of the law is what is important. Okay. So that when you're talking about strengthening the rule of law to facilitate peace building, national cohesion, is quite critical, because where it starts from is who developed the law. Were citizens participating in the development of the law? And what is the quality of the law? Because once we interfere and compromise on the quality of the law, which we are seeing a lot of time happening in the national parliament, that their proposals that the citizens have presented and validated the law during the public forums, but at the end of the day, what is enacted is quite different. Or there's a deviation in terms of principles and values. So and that impacts on implementation of that law at the end of the day. By the citizens, a lot of breaching of that law because they say this is not the law that we validated. But also by the same members of parliament and the executive. We see a lot of disrespect, outright disrespect of rule of law and the laws that they have passed themselves. And what we need to look at is basically push for political commitment far and beyond the law. Because there are instances where the law is there, but we're also finding directives from the political regime that is quite favorable as compared to the law itself. That we pass the law and put it on the docket, but at the end of the day pass resolutions and policy regulatory frameworks that are a bit favorable in terms of the national value and people's participation in this process. So of course, we are saddened by the move that is we are seeing within the political space, led by even our own political leaders, breaching the laws, disrespect of the law. But as I've mentioned earlier on, it starts from what was the intentions of this law. And it goes back again to the national values. Because once you stick to the national values envisioned in our Article 10 of the Constitution, you'll find little breach and disrespect of these laws. Because you know where it is emerging from and you know the outcome of it at the end of the day. So you'll find a lot of respect in other countries that have embedded the national values, ethics and morals at a lower level, that when you come to engage with the law as a youth, for example, in education or university level, you'll find it easier to engage it favorably. But if at the grassroots level or at the development stage, you still did not see the people around you, the community around you respecting the law or coming up with laws that are favorable, you will grow as an individual disrespecting the law. That's why an individual who commits crime, they will be sentenced for 3 years, come out and again be sentenced for another 3 years for the same crime because they do not understand what is the impact of this law.
And the question is then, because these are the leaders who are supposed to, set an example, right? And like you're saying, there's just total disrespect of the law, right? So then the question is, should we then strengthen the law in terms of make the punishment harsher so that people know if you do this, then this is the punishment, and it doesn't matter who you are at the end of the day. If you are, or if you are found to be guilty of an offense, you're charged regardless of where you stand, in the society.
That can work because remember, punishment is predetermined. Any good quality law must have a predetermined punishment that I know when I commit murder, I'll be sentenced to life. But it goes beyond just having the prescriptive narrative within the law. It needs a lot of change of attitude, morals, and behaviors. The values that we instill in our individuals beside the law, because we did not start with the law. Our initial setting at community level, there were no laws. We're basically having cultural norms that we adhered to that did not automatically take you to prison or life imprisonment, but somehow you'd find a social order. Law comes on board to bring social order because there is a gap that has been introduced somewhere in the community, within the family setting, within the university level, that unless we address those institutional gaps, cultural gaps that we have created, the law, regardless of how formative, predetermined it is, might not work. So we still have a lot of work working together with the religious sector, education sector, government, private entities to ensure that we instill some values for people to appreciate some principles of living, of livelihood, social cohesion. All those ones, unless they are addressed, regardless of whether we are ratifying international laws or amending our laws as we do normally and often, might not work out. For the society. We'll still have structural tension, we'll have cultural tension that is emerging from the community. As much as we are not fighting, but there's a build-up of tension, which is growing from a child who has lived in a certain community setting or a family setting, to bring the tension to the primary level, secondary level, and the university level. At the end of the day, when this youth has graduated, they will also spread that tension to the community. So there will be no national peace till we instill some values at very young stages of our life.
Yeah, and I'm about to say it's how do we do that, but again, there's the conference, you know, going on just to make sure that we try as much as possible and, you know, deliberate on some of these things and how to get to those people, because there's also an aspect of, you know, culture where there's some things as we've grown knowing this is the way, right? This is how we solve issues, for example, in our community. But then again, so changing that person's mind and say, listen, yes, we understand this is what you need to do to change or to, you know, bring peace or to get, for example, what you need as a community level, but how about we try this other way? But now when we talk about peace, because again, this is not a conversation that is just starting, right? We have had it over and over and over and over and over again. But the question is, can we just, from a national level, let's get to understand how it trickles all the way down to, for example, a family, right? You know, how much they can be impacted as far as, you know, if peace is not there, to what magnitude, so that we paint that picture for people. You want to take that, Dr. Gaido?
I think there is a lot to do with upbringing and parenting also. You know, the Bible, I'm not an expert, the referent is here.
Yeah.
The Bible is clear, and it says in Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in a way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Okay.
It's all an issue of upbringing. What is the mode of parenting? How do we do it? Because the family is the basic unit of the society. Actually, the society is made up of different families. And it is what happens at the family level that will be broadcasted at the community level. If you go out to the park or even the school and listen to the kind of conversation the children in their own small world, the kind of conversation they have, the kind of commendations they do in their group, the kind of, are they easy to apologize, to say sorry, to say thank you among themselves?
Okay.
It will depend. If a child has not been taught at the family, because the family is the basic unit of interaction. If the child is not taught to say thank you, to say I'm sorry, when this kid gets old, saying thank you or sorry will be so painful. And therefore, parenting is important, and that is what will happen as the child progresses up. And past the university level, past the college level, this person will occupy a position of leadership. And that good that he or she was taught will not depart from her or him. I believe parenting
plays a major role.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when it goes to, when these kids go to the school, it needs to be perpetuated. And the parents should not say, we have managed to get the kid from school, from the house to the school, and fold their hands for the teacher to continue the process. It's a project. It's a project that is so important. Otherwise, we lose when this is ignored.
It's not there.
Yeah.
But also children grow and become adults, and at this point they make their own decisions, right? And I'm pretty sure you've seen a lot of, again, children who were brought up very well. There's a bit of values, you know, instilled in them, and then they're now released into the world, and they make different choices.
Different
from
kids are there.
From what they were taught.
That's normal. That happens. You'll never be perfect.
Absolutely.
You'll never
not,
be
yes.
perfect. I think that is why there are prisons. Maybe that's why. But there'll be fewer prisoners.
Yes.
There'll be 4 different cases
Yeah.
if this is well inculcated.
Okay.
Yeah, we can never have a perfect community.
Absolutely.
But also, of course, the law is there.
Yes.
The most important thing also, I think, is enforcement. We have very good laws. I think in Kenya, look at the traffic law. In fact, we just need to look at how we drive. You just need to have a driver on the road and people not overlap. Remove that police officer.
Okay.
And hell breaks loose. So it's enforcement.
Okay.
We are bad mannered.
We have bad manners ourselves. Okay, you should know. Then let's talk about the aspect of enforcement, right? Like he says, we have really good laws, and it's true. We have these laws. Sometimes, again, depending on how you see it, some people would be like, yeah, but it is unfair. There's some people who, you know, like petty offenders get, you know, long time sentences. But then again, this person who stole a lot of money, you know, they just give it like a slap on the wrist, and then that goes. Let's just address the aspect of enforcement of the law.
Yeah. Just to add up on the family setting, you are seeing also instances where we are graduating from a situation where the family was not guarded by the state. But looking at Article 45 of the Constitution, it already establishes the family as the fundamental unit of the society. So it places responsibility for the state to protect the family, because we know that is where the competence and character development happens. There's a lot of emotional support, social order that is created by the family, which has an impact to the society. And that is why you find we have Marriage Act, we have the Prevention of Domestic Violence. The law is really intruding, some say it's positive and negative, but there's a way the law is intruding into the family space to ensure that there's a lot of social order within that space. But we know at the end of the day, beyond the family, and you know, when you define family, it goes further, not father, mother, and nuclear family. When you join the university becomes your family. They also have a role to play in terms of the educational structures and facilities they are given to build on the character that has already been initiated at the family level. So it's a journey that we must walk together, so that even if this specific youth goes to church, there's also a religious support that they are getting. So all the family, a general understanding of family must be expanded to the society to understand it is not just the role of mother and father. The way we say children are community-based, we need to bring that aspect back to the society. But beside the family, of course, we have laws that are there. And now what we're working with the judiciary is coming up with, of course, a justice system that is friendly for children. Because we're also noting that there's a lot of juvenile injustice in Kenya. And if we do not have services that are really friendly to ensure that the child goes through the justice system in a very objective and friendly manner, because there are instances that there are those ones who do not follow any structural support. You have walked the journey at the family, university level, you still find your student being caught up in some crime, substantive crime outside there. But you know, the society will still link them back with Mount Kenya University, Nairobi University, they'll still link them up with the university. So they're saying, there's a role that you need to play for this student not to be marked your student. And it's just to strengthen the law. The law also has some, of course, gaps in terms of development and implementation, because there's a lot of discretion. Look at even issues of manslaughter. The magistrate has a number of years to consider, so that if it's, you know, the case of Chomley, we really debated on the discretion that the years that were given, because we thought that if perhaps was a different individual would find them serving the highest ever discretionary powers that the magistrate could have. So that discretion also gives a lot of imbalances and discriminatory practices that people would define justice with. So it's good also to have laws that are very clear, so that I know if I'm a son and daughter of Mogeni or a son and daughter of Otieno or Njoroge, I will still face the same law without any discrimination or imbalances that comes out of it. Otherwise, prescriptively, the law is fine on the table, as it is. But in terms of implementation, that's where there's challenge. The instances we just don't implement the right law. You can find a specific crime or a specific act or a mission. You can opt to use a different law, which gives you a different sentence, which gives you a lower sentence, a lower sentence out of the crime that you've committed. So also there's a lot of prosecution support, police support in terms of implementation, so that invoke the right law that will give the maximum sentence, because the crime has already been enacted.
Absolutely, absolutely. But then again, so the question is, why do, and especially this comes to the law enforcers, I don't know if it's feel the need to apply different laws to different people. Is it then a case of values, you know, on personal interests. What am I getting if I'm, for example, protecting this person, or what am I getting if, you know, I charge this person, you know, with this particular sentence? Does it go down to then an individual and the values that they hold? You know, that's, you know, ends up affecting their judgment. You know, if I can say that very quickly before we go on a break.
Yes, because it affects even the social cohesion of the community. Because if you give laws in a very selective manner, it goes beyond favoring me as an individual. Because you're favoring me because of my background, but at the end of the day, the implication of that law, it also serves back to injustices within the community. So you're already building injustices through only one judgment, but you're breeding a number of individuals who are unsatisfied with the justice system.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's take a break. But of course, when we come back, we still have a lot to talk about. We have an aspect of gender peace, you know, and security that we need to also focus on, and that aspect of family tolerance. Yes, we've mentioned, you know, a little bit about the same, but then again, so instilling that and making sure that, you know, this helps as far as peace building in the country. Still have a lot to talk about, you know, as far as that is concerned, and that is on peace. But Kenya, what if we told you that your smile can help those next to you? Well, Colgate is helping to provide clean drinking water so that our children can have a bright future by staying in school. So for every pack of Colgate that you buy at your nearest Naivas store over the next 2 months, you are helping to build 30 water wells that will provide clean water for 120,000 people. Now that is something to smile about. So visit the Colgate Kenya Facebook page or visit the website on wellboring/colgate.com for more information. And once again, terms and conditions apply. We come back after this break. Stay with us.
Embrace.
So when will we meet up? I'm mad you're next to that crazy woman. Don't you dare flirt with her.
I'll call you tomorrow. I love you.
I finally tracked down where Sir Benjo is.
But are you sure about that, sir? Well, let's go and check that place now.
Okay, ma'am.
Borrowed Embrace.
Borrowed Embrace in association with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
Choose boldness. Celebrate the skin you're in and dress with confidence with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion. The triple layered care of deep moisture serum, precious cocoa butter, and vitamin E enriches your skin for 48 hours. Choose to wear your skin with pride with Nivea.
How many cases have you taken to court?
Gentlemen, 453.
And one conviction. You should be disbanded.
We do not prosecute. Our office to investigate.
The biggest enemy that the Kenyan people have is not malaria, is not HIV, is not COVID, it's politicians.
In as much as Bonnie says we should elect good leaders, what if we are not good ourselves as a country?
God has no voter's card. God will never elect anyone. The devils that you think you need to be scared of are the devils that you elect.
The impunity we have, you know, we blame them. Look at our roads. The impunity, border borders, the matatus, how we drive, everything we do. Impunity is rampant everywhere.
The law must be seen to work.
This country is bigger than you and your party.
Jambo wa Kenya,
Jina langu ni Florence Mureithi, na ukitaka kupata Inuka Mteule, kama sikiza tune yako, bonyeza *811 *851#. Sikiza na Nation, supporting local talent.
You're watching Your World in association with Colgate.
Welcome back, glad you're still with us. The show is Your World, and it's all about the second International Conference on Peace, Security, as well as Social Enterprise. And remember, this will be taking place on 18th to 20th of May 2022. And of course, the venue is at Mount Kenya University Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, main campus. This is in the kind of course here, you know, getting to understand why it is important, first of all, to just maintain peace and what we can do as individuals, but also as institutions, and especially when it comes to institutions of higher learning, to just make sure that, you know, we inculcate that aspect of values, you know, proper values that will in turn promote peace. Now, there's also that question of, you know, human rights. And of course, we've talked about an aspect of the rule of law and, of course, democratization. And this is as far as helping in securing lasting peace and security. And there's a lot of discussion really surrounding, you know, aspect of human rights and where, you know, where do you strike a balance as far as making sure that, yes, there's a bit of justice, but also respecting a person's, you know, right, really. So, like, you want to take that very briefly, and then I'll come back to Reverend Regina.
Okay, thank you. For any strategy that aims to produce a long-lasting peace, must look at three pillars. One of the pillars is economic recovery. For instance, Kenya as a country, we're moving towards election period. We've already started our election cycle, but we're also still recovering from our economic issues we had during COVID-19.
Yes.
So that you might find tension that is not purely related to the election, but is basically a build-up tension that is coming from the economic loss that we are yet to recover. Even before COVID-19, already as a state, we were struggling with our GDP. So we are still having those inherent economic gaps. Then the COVID-19 also brought a lot of economic disparities. And if those ones are not really discussed and resolved, they will also merge up with the election-related violence and issues that will destabilize peace in the country. The other aspect of it is social cohesion. That if we really do not look at how we are coexisting within the community, far and beyond even political language and narrative and discussions that are happening. But the social cohesion, how is the state really building that national cohesion, the global citizenship, nationalism, patriotism, that when even the flag is being raised, we all stand. We've lost all those patriotism aspects of it.
Yeah, we used to do that a lot.
Yeah, we related them with the Moise regime, but at least it brought a lot of responsibility. I knew there's respect to the police, the respect to the national flag. But we've come to an instance where a national flag is basically a dress code that I can wear along the streets of Nairobi. Maybe it's liberalism, but it's fine. But what we're looking at is a situation where there's investment by the private sector, the public sector, towards building a social cohesion. Then the other thing which we're looking at is political legitimacy. And all those ones have a lot of human rights aspect of it. That if you don't respect my economic empowerment, you do not respect my ability to produce and contribute towards the GDP, I feel excluded.
Absolutely.
And the only options I have perhaps is to steal, to get any other way of making my money, because you're not giving me a platform to be able to facilitate my economic empowerment. Then of course political legitimacy is what now we are experiencing now. That if the leaders do not give us a direction, do not push for respect of the rule of law, do not push for respect of freedom and dignity of human beings during this election process, we might also find a lot of tension. That is not even related to who won, whether it's Azimio, UDA, whichever political party won. But basically, you've already groomed up some tension because of some institutional responsibilities that they are not performed, in terms of respect for human rights. It's quite fundamental. For I myself, as Shiro Mogeni, to be able to push for peace, I must also feel dignified. I must also feel respected that the Bill of Rights in the Constitution is implemented, that I feel I have the freedom, my fundamental freedom is respected, that I can be given the room to go and vote. Even the voting right is quite critical at this time of the day. That I can be consulted when you come in with economic stimulus programs within the government. But as long as a community or a grouping feels excluded, and it's not women, men, it goes deeper to say, even if it's men, are you engaging the vulnerable groups? Is Wajir Marsabit, as one of the marginalized county, participating in all these processes? What is the feedback, the outcome of the policies that we're coming up with? There will still be a lot of tension growing out of that process.
Out of the process, All right, so then Regina, how do then religious institutions become parts, of this, just making sure that we implement everything that is needed? For example, that aspect of respecting, one's religious beliefs, tolerating one another, again, respecting, every single person's, first of all, right? But at the same time, making sure that in as much as we respect all those things, we also, all contribute towards peace building in the country. How do we get there?
First, I think it is fundamental for each and every person to be able to experience that freedom that we are talking about, because the joy of experiencing that freedom is what will make you want other people to experience it. In the church and in all religions, I think one of the key things that we are talking about is being set free. Being set free to worship, being set free to live, being set free to do whatever we would want to do as we grow or as we build this nation. And I think it is very important when we put this in the minds of the little children who are there in the madrasas and in the Sunday school, as we try to make them understand what is the value and what is the importance of this. We know that when there is conflict, it affects men and affects women and affects children in many different ways. We have women who really suffer when they are displaced from their land, where they had planted maize and all these other things, and they have to remain in the refugee camp and they have no food to give to their children. We have men suffer whereby I don't know why they are always made the target of bullets most of the time, and it's like to be shot, to be killed, both boys and men. But everybody suffer when there is conflict. And that is why the cry of everybody being set free, the respect of human rights, allowing me to live, and for you also, me allowing you to live, this is very, very important in the country at the moment. And religion comes in to encourage people to practice what they have learned. Because I think the whole problem is not with the religions or with the church, for example, not teaching on these values. The whole problem comes in because we do not want to practice what is it that we have learned. And that is why you find that when conflict erupts in a particular region, it is not propagated by those who know no religion. It is not propagated by those who do not have Christian names and they are not practicing. You find that those who are being killed and those who are killing, they are actually members of the same church. And so it defeats the logic, because we are one body. We are one body in religion. So how comes that you wake up in the morning and you are chasing me and you are killing me and you are destroying my property? So there seems to be a gap when it comes to the implementation of what is it that the church and the religion is teaching to the members.
To the members.
Yes.
I like that. All right. And of course, let's address then how, you know, institutions of higher learning together with, you know, the private sector and the government, you know, just come together to be better promoters as far as peace is concerned. Dr. Gaido?
You see, institutions, and I've said this before, they prepare the workforce, the labor force, the leaders, past the school, past the lecture halls.
All right.
This as the output of an education system at whatever level. At primary level, we offload a number of them. Some progress with the high school education, others exit, and they go to the field of work. And sooner or later, a graduate of Saturday 8 will be a mother, will be a father, will be a provider. So the question is, how do we need to prepare them? We need to go back to the drawing board and look at our curriculum, look at what we train, how we offer it, and whether we have a holistic person who exists from the education system. The moment we have professionals who are so qualified but may lack some certain value systems, then we will only have objects, machines that can perform.
Yeah, there's a bit of a debate about what is being offered in institutions, you know, educational institutions, higher institutions of higher learning, where, you know, most people would say, listen, the only thing that they're being taught in school is, you know, the technical skills, you know, but then what about the soft skills, you know, integrating into once, because after school, of course, you're looking for a job. When you get a job, you'll be interacting with different people from different backgrounds. So that aspect of tolerance, how do I deal with this person? How do, you know, accommodate them? Let's say, for example, they have different beliefs. You know, from me, they have different value system from me. How then do I tolerate them? So you're saying we need to look into what is being offered into our education system.
We need to actually underscore the value, the importance of value-based education.
Okay.
Whereby we are building morals, we are building character. So that those that we graduate become true citizens of the universe, true citizens of the world. We don't prepare a person to be a local player. Should be a person who should go beyond the horizon to use the skills and knowledge they have acquired. How will that happen? If they are prepared, one, to appreciate diversity. That we are not, I'm not the universal good. I'm not the perfect person. But in diversity, we have a lot of opportunities. And it is by recognizing diversity that you'll be able to also identify challenges that your skills and knowledge should solve. In fact, somebody said, we are poor, maybe because we do not know how to pray.
Okay.
We maybe sometimes pray so hard, closing our eyes, knocking our chest, seeking for miracles. Maybe we need to pray and ask, God, give me knowledge and a way of solving that problem.
Okay.
And that way will become useful. So the education system should actually inculcate value, because in the mind of a graduate, he should be a problem solver. And it will also help us to address the mentality of scarcity. And I think that is what makes us fight. When you imagine that there can never be enough for all of us. So you amass. You want to amass. And we amass to a point of waste. You see, animals in the wilderness do not have fridges. They eat, fill, and
that's it.
When they feel hungry, they go and capture. They don't store. But the world of human beings, the community, we seem to have a mentality of scarcity. So you want to have everything to yourself. And out of that, we deny other people's opportunities.
That's true.
And like Wakili has said, they might not sit to die. They might come for what they consider as theirs that you have taken away. Conflict.
That aspect of selfishness, what is in it for me? How, what do I gain, you know, from this? All right, Shino, you want to contribute to the same?
Yeah, I wanted to contribute. I think it also goes far and beyond pedagogy. How do we offer this training? Because in law, for example, when we talk about Karl Marx, which every lawyer from Asian 1902 has learnt about Karl Marx. But how do we conceptualize Karl Marx theory in a way that is applicable in the 21st century? Till we do that, education might not be useful to an individual who has done 5 years or 6 years of study outside the scope. And the partnership between government, private, public sector, and the university, it's a must. It's mandatory. Because we are producing, the universities are producing the product that is going to offer services to the same government, to the same private sector. So that if you do not partner with us to build that value-based education that Mr. Vincent is talking about, you might not get a resource base that is useful to your own space as a private sector. We'll still question all the universities, this university, and rate even the universities. The way we do national rating of 1 to 10. It's not worth it. All what you need to do is to come back and say, why don't 1 to 10 be on the same page in terms of value-based? So that a graduate from whichever university in business law or bachelors of law can offer the same service to the state, the same service to the non-state actors.
As well as from other again issues. There's some bit of standardization, you know, in terms of quality being offered in schools. Also, we cannot talk about peace without talking about, you know, the aspect of gender, which is equally important. And of course, this begins from, you know, all the way back, coming back to, you know, education institutions, as well as, again, we cannot also not mention the aspect of private sector. So, and every time we talk about gender, there's usually a bit of, you know, eye roll where it's like, yeah, women again, you know. But really, that is not the case, right? It's just making sure that we're all, there's a bit of equity as far as both the male and female in terms of, you know, what they're getting. And Shiro, again, I want you to contribute towards the same, so that the next time we mention the word gender. People do not roll their eyes like, yeah, there they go again. Women, you know, in this issue, and how important it is as far as peace building and maintaining peace really in the country.
Thank you. Gender generally also, it has now grown a better understanding within the society. That is far and beyond women and men. But basically, when you look at gender in the context of peace, is looking at the social constructions that you are giving the role of both men and women in peace building initiatives. That all of them must be included. And when you go to breaking down even the genders and say this is male or women, how are we looking at the vulnerability that a woman living with disability or a man living with disability or a person living with even HIV, how are they participating in peace-building initiatives? The dispute resolution mechanism, how is it inclusive? The police reforms that we're looking at now, security reforms, you see a lot of engagement of male. Even when you go to a public, a boardroom discussion on the security reforms in Kenya, the top layered, the top officers in the security platforms in Kenya, National Police Service, they are basically a lot of male. So there's need for, first of all, increasing representation of both genders within the security reforms agenda, but also going beyond an increase in representation and participation in conflict resolution. Because if I feel excluded, when you're coming up with your agenda and say, now we are going to implement the community policing program, and you don't see the need of I myself as a woman in terms of participation in that program, it may not be successful. Because at the end of the day, we still knock at women's doors. We still knock at the men's door to help us in solving conflict within the community. So both gender issues must be integrated, looking at the youth, children also in terms of participation in security reforms, dispute resolution mechanism, services that are also friendly for these different categories. What may work out in terms of dispute resolution program for a marginalized community might not work up in an urban setting. But we know there's a common principle and values that must be discussed. But you need to come up with initiatives that are favorable and adaptable for a specific entity for us to have a national cohesion or national peace at the
end of the day. I like that. All right, so we have very few minutes left, to wrap up the conversation. But Dr. Vincent, I'd like you to talk about very quickly, as far as then aspect of climate change, we have environmental security and sustainable development, where what are the risks and what institutions can do just to make sure that at the end of the day we have sustainable development, and then linking that to the conference which should be happening on from 18th. Very quickly.
Yeah, thank you very much. In the creation story, it ends with saying, and when God created, he said, and it was good.
Yeah.
He created an environment, the world, and everything was in order, and it was good.
It was good. Okay.
The question we may ask ourselves, would God say the same today? The issue of climate change is currently a truth, is a reality. The season systems that used to happen no longer happen the way we used to know them. In fact, ask any person who has been around for 2 or 3 decades and beyond. They'll tell you, when they look in their neighborhood, there are some certain plants, some certain birds that they no longer see in their village.
That's true.
Where do they go to? They have moved, either extinct or they have left, because the environment is no longer good for them. And if the environment has changed so much, if the climate change is real, then it means we are putting ourselves in a situation of deficiency. Look at the water supply. We do a lot of rationing every day, every week. You cannot have a water supply in your house constantly throughout. It is rationed. You could be lucky if you get rationed and maybe in a week you have water coming in for 2 or 3 days. People have jerry cans, tanks in their houses.
Just to store enough.
Because things are not the same. And when you look at the frequency and the length of drought, it then brings in competition for the few resources. Look at the pastoral communities. You'll see cows coming to Nairobi. People drive their animals to Nairobi from Kajiado because the pasture is not sufficient.
Enough for them. Okay.
And as they do this, and we have all these stories of conflict in the north, where the ranchers, the big ranchers, have secured their property. But the pastoralists also want to access the pasture.
Yeah.
What emerges? Conflict.
Okay.
The grazers, the arable farmers, all this. And therefore, when the environment doesn't work, when it doesn't hold at the center, when the equilibrium is wrong, then conflict will
absolutely happen.
Yeah.
All right. And of course, as far as then fairness and the electoral process and whether good governance and that question of, does it really work? As far as the electoral process, and is it fair? Does it work? And of course, the question is, where has it worked? Very quickly, Shiro, very quickly, and then I'll come back to Reverend Regina as far as what then the media can do to make sure that they promote peace. But for you, as far as the electoral process, what would you say, even as we gear up towards the general election, in 45 seconds?
In terms of the election process, we have seen progressive laws. We've done amendments to the Political Parties Act, and we have also laws that protect electoral-related violence. So as a country, we've really grown in terms of having legislative and policy framework to support the election process. We've also seen a lot of improvement in the nomination processes. They are open, transparent, rather than the zebra listing of women and of gender, which is becoming a dynamic now because of the court case. but at least there's a lot of progress that can be recorded in Kenya in terms of the election process, and there's a lot of parallel peace building and cohesion initiatives coming from the government, and the religious sector is also giving multiple support here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, couple that with then the media, because it's very, very critical for the media as far as, and especially now as we head towards the general election, what we broadcast, what we say, and all those things. So how then can the media together with, the religious institutions just help in promoting peace?
Sometimes I look at the media as a double-edged sword.
All right.
It can cut, it is sharp on this side, and it is sharp on the other side. Sometimes it is very sharp on trying to propagate violence, fake news which are not really, So we see media going out like standing on one side and wanting the nation to follow one line, and in the process it may end up bringing a lot of chaos. But on the other side, media can be used to propagate peace.
Absolutely.
Media can be used to say only those things that will make Kenyans want to embrace one another, want to smile to one another. And if media was to be, if media was to play its part properly, I think we would be able to uphold this nation without cutting one another and killing one another.
Yes. All right, so it's practice a bit of impartiality, and even now as we head to the elections, that is what we do right here at NTV and Nation Media Group, really in general. That is remain impartial, but also offer, accurate, news to the people. So we have to end this conversation here. That the conference will be happening from 18th to 20th May 2022 at Mount Kenya University Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, and this is in main campus, that is in Thika. So make sure that, again, be part of this conference. Let's have this conversation around peace even as we gear towards the general election, so that we maintain peace really at the end of the day. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming by today, and of course for the conversation as well. We'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, right here on Your World. But until then, enjoy the rest of your viewing, and of course make sure that you become part of an ongoing campaign, and this is as far as Colgate is concerned. Make sure that you get yourself a pack of Colgate, and of course you'll be helping keep our children in school, and of course helping 120,000 families across the country. So head to your nearest Naivas supermarket and of course grab yourself a pack of Colgate and help keep our children in school. So my name is Winnie Lubembe. God bless. See you tomorrow at 7 a.m. right here on Your World. But enjoy your day. Until then, goodbye.